Hey, what's up everybody? Nick here, and today we have a very special question for my Ask Nick series. It's a question I get asked all the time, and I'm really excited to talk about this particular subject because I know it affects a lot of young runners. It affected me a lot in high school, but I learned how to solve the problem. Here is the problem. Hey Nick, big fan. I've been struggling with shin splints for a while now. Any tips on making them go away or how to avoid them in the first place? Shin splints. Now, if you're a runner, I'm almost certain that you've dealt with this at some point. I dealt with it a lot in high school, and I've learned not only how to deal with it or how to correct the problem, but how to avoid getting it in the first place, because who wants to be dealing with shin splints every season? Now, before we get into my own experience with shin splints, I just want to read a synopsis of what they are, and this is published by the Mayo Clinic, a very respected hospital. Overview: the term shin splints refers to pain along the shin bone, the tibia, the large bone in the front of your lower leg. Shin splints are common in runners, as we know, dancers, and military recruits. Medically known as medial tibial stress syndrome, shin splints often occur in athletes who have recently intensified or changed their training routines. The increased activity overworks the muscles, tendons, and bone tissue. Most cases of shin splints can be treated with rest, ice, and other self-care measures. Wearing proper footwear and modifying your exercise routine can help prevent shin splints from recurring. That is spot on with my own experience. Now, in high school, I would get shin splints at the start of every season. At the start of cross-country season, at the start of track season. Once I started training year-round, that didn't happen anymore. And I talked to a doctor, and the reason for this is that a lot of times what's happening is it's kind of an overuse injury, really just a shock to the lower body. So in the winters during high school, I used to play ice hockey, and those muscles would atrophy. The muscles and tendons and the bone right along the shin there, those would atrophy as I was using different muscles to play ice hockey. Then, of course, in March and April, I transitioned back to the track, and sure enough, shin splints. So, as soon as I started training year-round, and by training I mean running year-round, I no longer had shin splints because I never let those muscles atrophy. Now, if I did, let's say I got injured. I remember as a pro, I got injured and once took 6 months off. And during that time, those muscles did atrophy, and when I came back, once again, I got shin splints. This is how I deal with shin splints. Number one, ice the crap out of them. I absolutely believe that icing shin splints is going to help. I put a bag, or better yet, if you freeze a Dixie cup, fill it halfway or 3/4 of the way, a little paper Dixie cup with water, you can create an ice cube, and then you can peel that paper off and use that paper ice cube to massage the shin bone. However you prefer to ice, you can use frozen peas, you can use a bag of ice, whatever, but be icing that sore shin for 10 minutes at a time, 3 times a day. That's going to help a ton. The other thing, I can't recommend this enough, and I think they said it here, they said with wearing proper footwear, you absolutely have to have proper footwear. Sometimes shin splints can creep up mid-season simply because your shoes are worn out. Now, I know shoes are expensive. I used to have to pay for shoes when I was in high school, and in college, in fact, I paid for my own shoes. And you want to get every last mile out of them. But if shin splints start creeping in, it's not worth banging those shoes into the ground one more step. Make sure you're wearing fresh enough shoes. I like to rotate my shoes every 300 to 500 miles, depending on the make and model. So make sure you're rotating those shoes quick enough. Now, getting back to the fact that shoes are incredibly expensive, and I know firsthand how expensive they are, I'm making this announcement here today that I have partnered with Running Warehouse to provide some free shoes to people who have supported my career. So if you want a chance to win a pair of free shoes, go and follow me on Instagram. I have the details there. And I am going to be giving away a pair of free shoes for the next 6 weeks. Actually, I'm thinking about doing it for the entire year, but I'm partnered with Running Warehouse for 6 weeks to give 6 lucky people a free pair of shoes, whatever you want that they carry on their website. Running Warehouse is a phenomenal website for finding great deals on running shoes for both men and women, and I actually bought shoes from them a long time ago when I used to buy shoes. They are a great e-tailer. So check that out. Follow me on Instagram for details. And back to the shin splints, the last thing I'll say, you do have to rest them. Now, you can't make sure that they're shin splints. If they are shin splints, it is possible to train through them, but again, be very careful so you're not doing damage. I have trained through shin splints before, but first I diagnosed them that they were in fact shin splints, and then two, I took the preventative measures or the recovery measures like ice and proper shoes. Now, if you're doing that, I do think with proper guidance, it is possible to train through shin splints, but let's just worry about not getting them in the first place. So take care of your feet, take care of your legs, train smart, listen to your body. If you have other questions on any of those subjects, you know what to do. Shoot me a DM on Instagram. And I'll see you here on my new channel, Nick Symmonds 2, next week.